Okay, this is our video for Chapter 2, Lesson 1. This lesson is all about finding the percent of a number. So, first we've got two vocabulary words. Our first word is of, and of means to multiply. That's a very important word for us in math. A lot of students forget that of means multiply. So this is like a word that can be overlooked, but just remember, of is a strong math word, means to multiply. Second vocab word is commission. Commission is a word that you've probably heard of before, but you may not understand how it is used. Commission is when somebody is a salesperson and part of the money from their sale is paid directly to them. So the official definition is it's a percent of the sale price. Look at the of there, we know we'll be multiplying, paid to the salesperson. So if you sell cars, you might get a base salary, so that's your pay that you get just for working there. And then every time you sell a car, you may end up getting 5% of the sale price. That goes directly to you. Here are our notes for 2.1. Before we can multiply with percents, we must change the percent to decimal form. So remember, that's using D2P, moving the decimal two places to the left to change a percent into a decimal. So we'll be doing that a lot in this lesson. Our first example, this is in your practice problems. We will do number 1 together. What number is 85% of 20? So I want to give you a little visual here quick before we do this together. 85% of 20. Well, I want you to picture our number 20 here. And I want us to think, if we broke that up into 100 tiny pieces, 85 of them would make up 85%. So my shaded pieces here makes up 85% of 20. So when we get our answer, when we do this math, we should expect a number that is almost as big as 20. 85% is almost a whole, but it's going to be a little bit less. So let's see our actual math. So 85%, the first thing I have to do is use D2P to change the percent into a decimal. So I move my decimal from the very end 2 places to the left, and then I get rid of my percent sign. So my problem is 0.85 or 85 hundredths of, which means times, 20. So we're going to set this problem up vertically. 85 times 20. We have two numbers after the decimal point, 1, 2. So that 2 can go here in a box. We can do our multiplication. 0 times 5 is 0. 0 times 8 is 0. Use your placeholder, 0. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 8 is 16, plus 1 is 17. And if we add that up, we get 1700. And we bring our decimal 2 places back in to our product. So 17 is 85% of 20. 17, that is close to 20, just like our picture here shows. It's almost the whole thing, slightly less than 20. So that's what 85% of 20 means. We're taking a portion of that number, but not the whole thing. Here's another one for us to look at. Notice I'm skipping number 2. You're going to have to go back and do number 2 tonight. Number 3 here says 125% of 80 is what number? So I'm going to do another visual for you. I want you to be able to picture this. 125%, that is a percent bigger than 100. So that's actually 100%, which is 1 whole, plus 25%, which means we're going to have a whole 80 plus 25% of another 80. And here's what that picture looks like for us. Here's my 100%, that's my 80, and here's my 25% of 80. We can see it's just a small shaded piece here. And that's what the visual of this problem looks like. We can do the math together. Let's see if our answer makes sense. First thing we have to do is turn our percent into a decimal. We're going to use D2P, move the decimal place 2 to the left, and then cross off our percent sign. So the math problem we are doing here is 1 25/100 times 80. We can set that up vertically, 125 times 80. There are 2 places after the decimal, so I'll put a 2 in my box here so I remember where to put my decimal in the final answer. 0 times 5 is 0, 0 times 2 is 0, 0 times 1 is 0. Now I bring a 0 down to hold my place because I'm multiplying by the tens place. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 4 is 20. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 2 is 10. Add that all up. 0, 0, 0, 0, 1. And move your decimal 2 places back into the product there. So our final answer is 100 here. Let's see if that makes sense. 125% of 80, that was 100%, so that's our 80. Plus 25%, here's our 25%, that ends up being 20. And if we add those together, we get our 100. The other way to do this problem, like is exactly how we just showed it, turn our 125% into a decimal and multiply. So we get an answer slightly bigger than 80 when we take 125% of 80. I'm skipping some more questions here. Skipping ahead, I'm looking at number 9 now. Number 9, according to a recent study, about 35% of all people are left-handed. 35% of all people are left-handed. Out of a group of 85, predict the number of right-handed people. So I'm going to get you started on this problem, and then I'm going to let you finish it up. 35% of all people are left-handed people. So if we're looking at 35% of 85, those are our lefties. Okay, those are lefties. The question is asking us how predict the number of righties. So we will have to do our multiplication here. Change our percent to a decimal. Take 35/100 times 85. Oops, I forgot my 5 there. And that, I'm going to let you figure out that number yourself. That is the number of left-handed people out of the group of 85. Now, if we know that number, we're going to have to do some subtraction to figure out the number of right-handed people. So that's just some guidance there to help you get this problem done. You're not finished after the multiplication because the question asks about right-handed people. So think about that. Once we know our number of lefties, we can do some subtraction to figure out the number of righties. Okay, there's your hint. Finish that one up for part of your assignment. Number 10. This is another one I'm going to give you a hint for. Jack works at R&R Auto Group selling cars. He recently sold a new truck for $50,000. If Jack gets paid 7% commission on all of his sales, how much money will Jack earn from the sale of the truck? Commission is very easy to find. You just have to figure out what the commission percent is. In this case, it's 7%. And we're going to figure out what is 7% of the sale itself. Well, the sale itself was $50,000. So we will have to find out what is 7% of 50,000. You know how to do that. I will not do that for you. And once we know that number, we found the commission. Okay. Let's see what we have to do to finish up tonight's video. Make flashcards for your Chapter 2 vocab. Percent of and commission. Make sure your flashcards are ready to go. Complete the rest of the practice problems for 2.1. We did 2 together and I set 2 up for you, so I think there's just a couple more that you have to finish on your own. They're pretty quick. And when you are ready, you can begin lesson 2.2.